Grant Dania now.
It's Grant Dania.
The gold logie this year. Oh my God, it's Grant Dania.
And our mum, Chezzi Dania. She's really crazy.
And George,
Affectionately known
as Large Sarge.
It's all true.
It's All True, the podcast with Grant and Chezzi Dania.
And George.
Oh, I love that opener. I really, really do. Bit of a different one today. I am here by myself, recording this podcast by myself, and I'll get into the reasons why that's happening in just a minute. So bear with me. It's not going to be as long as what we normally do. I just thought that I would be Candid Chezzi for a week, and hopefully, who knows where this will go. So Grant and I have been trialling some new podcast equipment, and during the week when we normally record our podcasts, we came in and we were doing a bit of a setup and a trial. And Grant is a real perfectionist, as you might have possibly worked out by now. So he really likes his cameras to work properly. And I'm not as fussed, probably. Definitely, I'm not as fussed as what he is. He really likes things to be absolutely perfect, and that, has worked very well for him. Hence, he is the one with a very successful career in television and the media, which has spanned over 20-something years now. I am more of a big picture kind of person, and I guess that's why we work so well together, because he does all the fine tuning and I do the bulk of the work. That's making me sound like I do everything, which is not true, but we just have very different work styles. So this week, if I can paint a little picture for you, actually, here we go. See, this is pretty cool because now I get to press my own sound effects. So George called in sick, and he's had a bit of stuff happening and he hasn't been feeling too well, so that's fine. So Grant and I were committed to record together because we love recording the podcast. We sat down, we're trialing some new camera equipment, and it's all very technical. And basically, I sat in this chair while Grant played around with the camera behind the computer for what felt like an eternity. It was probably about 45 minutes. He still wasn't happy with the clarity of the camera. I didn't really care as much. We've had a bit of a tiff, and we don't have a lot of fights, but we've had a bit of an argument over this, and we've both decided, nope, that's it, we can't record today. He has then been called to travel interstate the following day when we were likely to record again. So he's gone. George is still unwell, and here I am. I probably shouldn't be recording today, if I'm perfectly honest. And hey, this is called the It's All True podcast, so let's go there. Last night, the Matildas played, and incredible. What an incredible team they are. They didn't win last night. However, they have won our hearts, and they have definitely captured the nation and changed sport, especially for females in this country. So legendary. And I let my kids stay up and we watched the show, the game, the match. At the end, there was lots of tears from Sailor in particular, who has absolutely fallen in love with the Matildas and with soccer and with Sam Kerr, and it's probably her first experience of, I guess, disappointment because she really wanted them to win, like we all did. But she's only 12, so it was a big shock for her that they didn't win, and she was very upset. So I spent quite a bit of time talking to her and trying to explain to her that, yes, it was disappointing that they didn't win. However, they did the absolute best that they could do, and unfortunately, they just weren't the best team in that game. And I tried to explain to her as best I could at that time of night when, I'm feeling quite tired myself. Tried to explain to her that there's a lot of things in life that don't go the way that we want them to, and that's okay. And we are going to feel hurt and we're going to feel pain, and that's all a part of living, and life is incredible. And there's so many incredible experiences that we are going to have and that she is going to have. But along the way, there is going to be disappointment. And that was her first kind of experience of disappointment. She still went to bed crying. She was still pretty upset. And this morning couldn't get up very well. We didn't go to bed till midnight. They usually go to bed about 8:30. So both her and Scout were very tired and were really dragging their feet this morning. So I made the call, and I hope that Docs isn't listening to this. No, I made the call to keep them home for the day. They were just too tired, too emotional, and I thought they are not going to learn. I'd be better off keeping them home today. They can do a little bit of homework, maybe some online learning, some reading. They can have a nap in the middle of the day, and then they can head back to school tomorrow. But there's been lots of fighting today, as kids normally do when they're tired. They're tired, they're angry, and they've been picking on one another. So I said to them that they needed to be on their best behaviour so I could come into the office when, or into the podcast studio when the baby little Sunday went to sleep, because she is extremely difficult to have around when you are trying to do anything, actually, because she's a very busy little 2-year-old and she would want to be in here on the microphone, and that just doesn't help anybody's train of thought. So that's some of the backstory. I've also had a dog that has been desexed last week and another dog that swallowed a stick. So both dogs have been at the vets, and just about half an hour before I came in here whilst the baby's asleep, one of the dogs threw up on a mat, and Sailor doesn't like vomit, so she had a little mini panic attack, and then the fight started, and it's been chaos, which, you know what, there's been several points throughout the morning where I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to get into the podcast studio and sit down and record what I wanted to record, which is not this. This is just airing all my dirty laundry. But I'm doing it because I want to be real, and also because I think it gives you a little bit of insight into how normal our lives are. And that's one thing that a lot of people have commented about this podcast, is that they love how, you feel like you're just sitting down with a friend. You've seen Grant on TV, and you've seen, I don't know, me doing God knows what. And, sometimes I think you can feel like we are not real, not living a real life. We very much live a very real life with lots of upsets and, and some down days and dogs that vomit, swallow sticks, etc. It's all very chaotic. And there's lots of days where I think, oh my God, what else is going to be thrown at me? But you just roll with the punches. So I'm here today by myself recording, and I had a few different topics that I was going to talk about. But you know what? I think we just have a bit of a general chit-chat like we have been doing because, I don't know, it just feels organic. And I like organic. And I like also being authentic, which is something that has taken me a long time to learn how to be more authentic. When I was at school and I had ADHD, undiagnosed ADHD, I would more often than not get into trouble. I wasn't a bad child, but I just probably did either talk too much, or I was a bit silly in class, or I liked to entertain people. And I probably was a real pain because, let's face it, when school's hard and you don't fit the mold, sometimes you learn how to get out of doing certain things. And I think that I learnt pretty early on that if I distracted the class with my jokes or with some of my antics, then maybe we wouldn't have to do the lesson of that day. Not advised, because what it ended up doing was making me feel in a certain way that I wasn't enough, because the people who were in charge, the teachers at the time, and some of the teachers I got on really well with, but other teachers, they didn't like the fact that I didn't fit the mold. So they were frustrated, if I can use that word. They were frustrated, I guess, because they could tell that I could do the work, but they just thought that I wasn't paying attention. And they were right. I wasn't paying attention. Not because I didn't want to, because more than anything, I wanted to be good at school. But I felt like a bit of a failure because I couldn't be. And I would try really hard with certain things, and I would sit down, and I remember like trying to pry my eyes open while I'm trying to do an assignment and study, and just, you know, I'd hear a noise, or somebody would walk past my desk, or I would look out the window and I'd look at the shape of a cloud and I'd think, wow, that looks like a carrot. And then I'd start thinking about carrots, and, you know, and my mind would just wander. That, you know, would have been annoying for teachers, no doubt. And it was such a different time back then because they didn't really understand ADHD like they do now. And I feel that I probably internalized, you know, a lot of the negative comments from teachers, and it just kind of played like on a bit of a loop, like you're not enough, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're stupid. And that's kind of what would play in my mind a lot. So through this process, I think I became a bit of a people pleaser, and that was where I would be, you know, say, for instance, and I remember doing this in year 10, there was a really scary teacher that I had, and I remember thinking, I'm going to get into so much trouble from her, and I really don't want to because she's scary and I don't like getting into trouble. I tend to get into trouble even when I'm not thinking, you know, or not trying to get into trouble. So therefore I'm going to do everything in my power to make her really, really like me. I am going to be everything that she needs. Now, some people could look at that and think, well, that's, you know, just a suck up. However, that was a survival skill that I learned. So I learnt, and it worked with that teacher, I learnt that if I did everything that that teacher wanted, if I predicted what that teacher would want next, then I could deliver that kind of work, that comment, that, that movement then that teacher, would give me praise, and that praise kind of helped put out that fire from that loop constantly going, you're not enough. Now, people pleasing is not healthy, and what it eventually ended up doing was it made me become inauthentic, and it took me a number of years and quite a lot of counselling over those years to learn how to be authentic and that it was okay to be myself. Because along the way, I'd kind of lost myself to a certain degree, and you can get yourself back. It's still a work in progress. If I'm having a particularly, I say a down day, I don't really have, I'm very optimistic and annoyingly so, according to most people around me. I feel that that's another thing that comes from my ADHD. Probably a positive is that I've had to overcome some really big obstacles in my life. And so I kind of feel like everything is possible. And my dad was also very much like that. So he really instilled that in me from a very early age, that you can do anything. Nothing is impossible. Impossible is nothing. So I don't really have down days, but say I'm tired, say I've had, a very disrupted night because I've been awake several times with the baby. I find that when you're very tired, my ADHD tendencies come to the surface. The same if I'm under extreme stress. I find that I kind of flap my arms a bit and don't quite know where to start. I guess that's, a bit of overwhelm. And so if I'm having one of these tired days and, I'm feeling like I'm a little bit more vulnerable, I guess, I probably would have a tendency to lean more into that people-pleasing type behaviour. But I'm quite good at catching myself at doing it now. And say, for instance, the other day I said sorry to somebody when I was walking past them. I wasn't sorry. I walked past them. That's a very old behaviour that I also learnt when I was young, was constantly saying sorry. Didn't want to be in the wrong, always felt like I was in somebody's road and felt like I don't know, I was a chronic sorry. So when you're walking through the shopping centre and somebody bumps into you, I would say, sorry. I worked on that. So for instance, the other day I said, sorry. I wasn't sorry. I didn't mean that. I needed to find my words, and I, had every right to be in the position that I was in. I, of course, apologise, if there's an inconvenience. I fully believe in that. However, if you are somebody who says sorry all the time, I think it's important to think about why you do that. Why are you saying sorry? And I do have in my mind a few friends that do this, and I've kind of come to a conclusion as to why they're doing it, only because I put myself in their shoes. It's invalidating, and it's certainly not, it wasn't connected to my authentic self. And it was just a verbal word that I said chronically. And there was a number of things that I did for people pleasing. And, as I said, if I have a tired day, what I call, a down day where things don't really go to plan, or, or if you're like me, you're a little bit distracted, and some of those old behaviours, come to the surface. Acknowledge it, deal with it and just think next time you'll do better. And that has been, it sounds very simple, but I think that acknowledging when you do something that you are not happy with, and for me that was people pleasing, and also being a chameleon when I was doing things that weren't authentic to myself, I kind of felt like a bit of a fraud. And it's really empowering to feel your authentic self and to stand strong in who you are and to know that you are a good person to the core and that you have good values and good morals and you are happy being yourself. It takes a lot of work, but it's so liberating to be in that position. And probably since I turned 40 and I was diagnosed with ADHD and I started studying the mind of an ADHD, somebody with ADHD, and the reasons why I do certain things and the reasons why I can't do certain things, that really helped me to understand that I wasn't broken and I wasn't flawed. I was just different, and that's okay. And that probably was the start of my becoming more authentic and through that process, I've learnt that I can be vulnerable and that's okay. Whereas once upon a time, you would never see me cry because I didn't cry, and I would bite my tongue very hard so that I didn't cry. And that wasn't healthy for anyone, and it probably was a big contributor as to why I developed PTSD, because you need to process emotions. And what I learnt through that little journey or experience was that I am quite an emotional person. I cry a lot. I get tears in my eyes if I talk about something really happy. I get tears in my eyes if I think about, how lucky I am and what I've been through. I will cry if I see somebody in pain, if I see an animal in pain. I like crying. I can't say I like crying, but I cry a lot. And for some reason, I used to hide that. And now I embrace it, as I'm sure you all know because you all listen to this podcast. So you've heard me cry, laugh, every emotion. And if you're a crier, you have to let it out. And going back to my point about being a chameleon, which also leads into the people-pleasing behaviour, I would shapeshift. I would become whatever I needed to become for the situation that I was in at that particular time. And the reason why I would do that was to avoid conflict, I think, was a main one. I didn't like conflict. Usually whenever I was around conflict, it was because I'd done something wrong, or that's kind of what my brain would tell me. And I didn't like getting into trouble. Conflict meant usually getting into trouble. So I would avoid conflict, and that just builds resentment. If you can't communicate your needs, if you can't recognize your needs, that just builds a huge amount of resentment. And resentment eventually has to come out. And, that's another lesson that I learnt over the years is that you need to process all these emotions. And I feel that I am in a really good place, and hence I'm sharing all of this with you. We've probably lost all our listeners except for two, probably my mum and Grant's mum. So hello, Shelley and Glennis. And anybody else who's still listening, I won't waffle on for too long, but I wanted to give you a little update on something else that's been happening, which is it's hard to talk about because look, all will be revealed in the next couple of months, but something really big happened to us not that long ago. And it was a scenario that was quite traumatic. And I say the word traumatic not loosely. It was a serious event, and you will find out what it is, and all of this will make sense. But it's not so much the event that I want to dwell on right now. It's the after effect and how I know that I've grown from, many, many years ago when I kind of fell into a bad post-traumatic stress disorder, slump. Thank you. That's the right word. See, that's the other thing that Grant's really good at. He's good at fine-tuning and articulating the words. So, Grant, you missed, and so are you, George. So something happened, and I was scared. The emotion that I felt was fear. I don't feel fear very often. It has happened several times throughout my life, and I can recall all of those moments, as I'm sure you listening to this, you can probably recall on your hand all the scary things that have happened to you in your life. And what happened to me in that moment was I lost all my intuitive skills. And the first part of this year, I started doing a very base course on mediumship. And I really liked it, and I was really excelling at it, and I was enjoying it, and I was enjoying learning how to be more intuitive and learning how to, connect with spirits and to feel and see and hear, and it's just a huge feeling of connectedness for me. And so before this situation, I was really primed with my intuitive skills. In fact, I felt $1 million because I was starting to refine the way that I connect to spirits. Not saying that I am ready to do readings or to connect with, other people. I've got a lot of learning to do for myself, but really validating experiences were happening to me, and I was seeing and feeling spirits and energies that are around me, and it was being validated in my lessons, which I did online. I woke up every Tuesday morning. My alarm would go off at 2 a.m. because it was an international course, and it was a lot of effort, but I loved it. And I felt like it was really helping me in lots of other parts of my life. And I was more patient, especially with the kids, especially when all the shit hits the fan. That could have been all the meditation. I mean, I have always found it very difficult to meditate, but in order to really hone my skills with connecting to spirit, I really had to meditate. And not just that, I had to enhance my focus skills. So one of the exercises, is closing your eyes and focusing on a particular object for 3 minutes, 5 minutes every single day. And when your mind wanders, bringing it back to that object and focusing on, the corners or the shape and the color. And it was hard work, but I was really enjoying it. So, so when I felt my intuitive skills gone, it was like they were scared out of me, and I felt really strange and very naked, and it certainly didn't help that scared feeling. I missed them, and they were gone for about 5 weeks. 5 long weeks where I had no connection. Whenever I closed my eyes, I would see, something that scared me. And I would just go back to that particular thing that happened. And so I knew that I had to work through that, and that was hard. However, in not working through that, I would just be going backwards, and I really wanted to. I didn't want to end up in another PTSD slump, I guess. I wanted to move forward, so I had to process all of those emotions. Now, I can't say that I did it perfectly, because I ended up doing my putting my back out, as you know, and then it moved to my shoulder. So I'm been hobbling around the last few weeks, but it made me start to slow down, start to breathe again, start taking my big deep breaths, very important, and start to meditate again, which I hadn't done for a long time. And slowly but surely, my intuitive skills have started to come back. And the first thing that only happened the other night. I was walking into the kitchen, and it was low light, and it was about 8 o'clock, I think, at night. And I just saw the outline of probably 3 or 4 shadows, and it's hard. If you can imagine a really hot day and you're looking down a road and you see kind of in the air, the heat rising, and you see the air, like the movement in the air. It's kind of like that. If you can imagine that in low light, off to my left, and there's movement there. And I wasn't scared. And I looked to my left and I said, oh, you guys have been with me the whole time. This is incredible. I thought that you were gone. And I felt like they were back with me. My spirits and my energies were back, and I could see them and I could feel them, and I felt comforted by that. And during this time where I had no intuitive skills, I had been doing a lot of internal talking to my friend who passed away, who I miss, every single day. And I said, is that you? Is one of them you? And literally I heard in my head, no, I'm back here. So same side, but like a second row. And I just, saw in my mind her going, no, I'm back here. And I was like, oh my God, that is so special. That's really, really beautiful. And they never left me. They're still here with me now. And I believe that every single person has spirit guides and has people guiding you, energies guiding you, and spirits and loved ones, and we're so looked after. And I believe that the situation that happened to me had to happen for some reason that I am unsure of just yet, but I'm sure that it will present itself to me, the reason, down the track. And I hope that you feel somewhat comforted by me telling you this, because even if you don't believe, even if you don't believe in spirits or that we can connect to energy or whatever you believe, that's fine. But people, we are essentially good, and we are being looked after. And you might not feel that sometimes, and I certainly don't feel it. Well, I didn't feel it in the last, couple of weeks, but my experience is that they were with me the whole time. They still are with me, and I believe the same for you. So I have just today been accepted to do a diploma of mediumship, which terrifies me. It's with an international school, and I begin the first week of September, and I am going to throw myself into this, boots and all. And it's a lot of work, it's a lot of study, and it's a lot of practice and a lot of focus. But I need it in my life. And if I'm being my authentic self, it makes me feel whole. And I like that feeling. So I want to finish on this. I want you to think about what makes you happy. What makes you smile? When was the last time that you laughed out loud, and what was it about? And when was the last time that you felt really comforted and really wholesome and connected? I want you to focus on that for a little bit. If you have to close your eyes with me. We'll do some deep breaths, and I want you to do that. And I want you to get more of that feeling in your life. Any way you need to, I want to help you to find your authentic self. So let's do 3 big deep breaths and think about the last time you really enjoyed yourself. What were you doing? Who were you with? And what were you wearing? What were you saying? What were you laughing at? What can you picture? So just close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. And a deep breath out. I want you to think about how you can get more of that back in your life. Send me any questions. Send me any complaints about how I've rambled today and how much you're missing George and how much you're missing Grant. And they'll be back next week. All right. Love you all. Bye. Mwah.
It's All True, the podcast with Grant and Chezzi Denya.
Bye